Hi, this is Mark from TA Brews, and today we're going to take a brief look into the increasingly popular world of beer infusions. And we're not talking about infusing beer during the brewing process here as such. We're actually going to infuse the beers with an auxiliary ingredient ourselves using a teapot, a cold infusion if you like. Here's the ingredients and basic tools that I need to create my beer infusion. It's a pretty simple process really. We have a glass teapot here, a Bowden one in particular, with a lovely large size mesh filter that I can put my tea or other auxiliary ingredients for that matter in here to flavour the beer with. I have my lovely Chinese green tea here, which has lots of sort of grassy herbal qualities and lots of tannic green tea kind of bitterness. And I'm hoping that'll work pretty well actually with this St Austell's Proper Job IPA from Cornwall. It's a bottle conditioned beer from the UK. Lots of grapefruit and zesty kind of bitterness in there and hop character. I'm hoping it will work quite well with this green tea in particular. So let's get started, shall we? And I'm going to crack open this beer and see how we get on. So I'm just going to pour some of my beer into a glass here. I've got two of these glasses, both identical, so I can A/B test my beer. So I'm going to pour a little bit of in there so I can actually get a feel for my base beer separately, how it tastes on its own. And then I'm going to, when I've done the cold filtration process, sorry, not cold filtration, the cold infusion process, I'm going to pour the rest of that beer into there. So let's get some of my green tea here. I think less is more with this kind of stuff, so I'm just going to put a small helping, maybe a couple of teaspoons of the green tea in this pot here. Very nice. I'm going to pour the rest of my beer into the glass teapot. Just hold that up so you can kind of see that. And gently pour it because I don't want to lose too much of that carbonation. So the risk during an infusion process of beer is that you lose that lovely carbonation. So there are several ways you can do this. You can do this with a teapot like I'm using here. You can also purchase something specifically designed for it. Dogfish Head make their Randall Junior, which is specifically designed for infusing auxiliary ingredients into beers. You could also use a French press, but my feeling is that if you use a French press, the filter is it's a very harsh mesh filter in there. It's likely to take a lot of the carbonation out of the beer. And alternatively, actually, one way you can do that without having a teapot is to have something like a tea ball here, but there's not much room for ingredients in there, and it's going to limit the movement and everything in your of your auxiliary ingredients. It's going to reduce the ability to actually move and infuse properly with your beer. But it can be pretty useful just if you want to do it inside a glass like that as well. But for today's example, we're using a teapot, and I feel this hopefully should produce a pretty good result. So I'm going to put the lid back on here, and then we're going to leave that to steep for around 15 minutes. Typically a cold infusion will take much longer than it would to, say, brew normal tea or to brew coffee, where you might leave it for up to 5 minutes, because obviously there's not that heat there to speed up the infusion process. So we're going to leave that 15 minutes, and then we'll see how that turns out. So while we're waiting for our tea to infuse into the beer, I'm just going to taste the base beer that we have here from St Austell. So it's a lovely, well-hopped IPA from St Austell here that we have. Just going in for the appearance, first of all. It's a lovely golden colour with a nice, decent head on there, lovely off-white head. Just going into the aroma. Yeah, it's pleasantly floral with a little bit of pine element in there. Almost a tinge of sort of elderflower in there as well, with plenty of citrus hop character as well. And straight into the taste. It's got good malt body. Plenty of grapefruit and citrus character in there as well, and a lovely, pleasant, lingering bitterness. It's not too assertive, but definitely pretty hoppy as well. It's a great base beer. So let's wait a few more minutes, and then hopefully our beer will be ready to compare with this lovely. Okay, so our beer's been infusing for about 15 minutes now. Let's take a look and see what the final result's like. So without further ado, I'm going to take this filter out of the teapot here. Just reposition the camera. So I'm going to take the filter out very gently, just allow the beer to slowly come through. Again, I don't want to lose too much of that carbonation, so I want to treat it fairly gently. Right, Right, so here we are. So as you can see, there are some elements of the tea in there, but that should only add to the experience. Gentle pour into our other cup. Pouring gently, just as you would with a bottle conditioned beer, just to leave some of that sediment behind. Put my teapot out of the way over here, and let's get a little bit of aroma. Much of that hop character is still there, but we're getting a slight element of grassiness on the aroma now as well. It's like herbal quality to it, adding to that sort of floral and citrus element that we had previously. That's really quite pleasant actually. It's just added another layer of depth to the beer. It's added a little bit of that sort of slight tannic bitterness that you would get from a green tea. It starts to come through later on. I mean, you got that initial malt body and you don't really detect it so much, but then as the flavour develops and sort of the aftertaste comes further on, a little bit like kind of hops can grow and hit you towards the end of a beer, you really get that green tea at the end of the finish more. Yeah, we've lost a minor amount of carbonation, but this wasn't a heavily carbonated beer to begin with anyway, because it's a bottle conditioned beer, but it's not ruined it, it's not put it down to a point where it's undrinkable and completely flat. But you would expect that. It's a bit of a trade-off, you know, it's a bit of fun, a bit of experimentation, and enables you to get a little bit more creative as well. Yeah, really quite pleasant. Just adds that extra layer of depth. Very subtle. Only put 2 teaspoons in there, but I think less is more with this. You don't want that to overpower. You don't want it to feel like a steeped cup of tea. Let's go back to the original beer. On the aroma, the hop character is slightly more pronounced on this one. Yeah, and it's maybe more fresh, but it just doesn't have that that added layer of depth that we're getting from the green tea. So I actually feel this works really well. It's not the certainly green tea is actually a popular choice for blending with India Pale Ales generally. I know Roosters in Britain do a green tea with Harrogate's green tea blend, and also Stone Brewing do a green tea or jasmine green tea IPA as well. So it's a combination that works really well. It's that tannic bitterness and that kind of lovely grassy herbal element almost just adds to the hop character in the beer. It's a really quite a pleasant combination. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting. I hope that wasn't too bizarre or different, but I hope you can actually see that how infusing different auxiliary ingredients into beer allows you to get creative, allows you to try all the different kind of combinations out there, and ultimately get more out of your kind of craft beer experience, if you like. It's almost like being able to do a little bit of brewing without actually having to brew the beer yourself, all the mess and the kind of complication that kind of comes with that. This is something that's really simple that you can do at home with really affordable equipment, and you can really get creative. So I think you'll see more of this kind of thing from TA Brews in the future. We're going to do one with coffee to start straight away, but there's so many different things you could do with infusions. there's ingredients such as cinnamon, there's ingredients such as lemon peel, and there's also the obvious things like ginger as well, and all the other kind of foliage. Sort of things like coriander, for example, works really well in beers. So I think there's a whole world of opportunity there for you to experiment and get creative and really explore the different flavours, and ultimately makes you better at tasting beer yourself in the future as well, so you understand the way that different ingredients can impart and how different flavour combinations work together to create a greater whole. It's a bit like beer and food tasting in that way, in that the sum should be greater than the individual parts. So I hope you found that useful. Having time to gather my thoughts, I really think the green tea and the IPA combination is a real winner. That grassy note, as I said, with the sort of slightly tannic bitterness really plays into the hop character and adds something a little bit different. So thanks very much for watching. We'll see you soon with more beer infusions, and catch you later. Cheers.